Welcome to What a Creep, the show with Margot Donahue and Sonia Mansfield talking about creeps from the past to the present.
This is your quick guide to the biggest creeps, jerks, assholes, and losers, the best of the worst.
From two nice ladies who want the world to be a little less creepy. Welcome back to What a Creep. This is Margot Donahue, and my cohort in creepitude, as always, is the amazing Sonia Mansfield. Hey, Sonia.
Hello, my friend.
Well, hello to you, my friend.
I don't know why my voice got so high.
Well, it's adjacent to our creep today. It's Elvis. Maybe he's making you all flutter, maybe?
That must be it. Oh, it's so sweating in here.
He's giving you the vapors.
Not really.
We are the podcast that talks about creeps from the past to the present. We're talking about a good old-timey creep, a good old-timey Hollywood show business creep, not a rapist that we can tell.
Oh, this week we should call the show What a Treat.
What an asshole. Just your basic goddamn asshole. Which is a nice break from things. We did talk about Elvis Presley on the show a couple of years ago. That's season 8, episode 2, if you are interested. Today we will be talking about Colonel Tom Parker. But before we get into that, we should say that we are a show that uses salty language.
Fuck yeah.
We also have a basic Facebook page. That's where people go to complain about our salty language. We don't check it very often. We have a private Facebook group. Yeah, we don't care. You have to answer 3 questions in order to join the group. We really like our group. It's a nice place to go and hang out. It's What a Creep podcast group. We're also on Twitter at CreepPod because somebody had What a Creep on Twitter for 10 years and never used it.
Creep.
We're on Instagram at What a Creep Podcast, and we have an old-timey email, whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com. That's a place, all those places you can go to leave us your suggestions for creeps and for non-creeps. And if this is your first time listening, we end the show with someone who is not a creep or some persons who are not creeps, so you don't leave feeling completely hopeless about the world. And today's creep, like I said, it's not too bad. It's just a nice, good venting kind of a creep, just get out of your system type of thing. Sonia, tell them about the website.
Yes, you could go to whatacreeppodcast.com, and it's everything you ever wanted to know about our podcast, but we're afraid to ask. It has links to all of our past episodes, and in each of those episodes is a link to our show notes. So everything is sourced, y'all. We're not making this stuff up. So every source we pull from, we link it to on the website. We pay for a lot of those sources too, just so you know, because we like to support journalism. We like to support the people doing our dirty work.
Yep.
So do that. There's also a link to our merch shop where you could get masks and tote bags and journals and all kinds of cool things. I still have my mask sitting right here by my desk, and it says maybe next year. I made this in 2020. Little did I know it would still be relevant well into 2022. So there you go. It's an investment. It's an investment, y'all. There's also a link to our Patreon page. Do you want to tell them about that, Margot?
Yes, Patreon. We have our first 5 seasons, tons of creeps there for you. Creeps aplenty. Plus, we put out 2 bonus episodes a month, and every month, Sonia puts out a really groovy newsletter. And like she says, it helps us pay for the cost of hosting the show, for the websites, and for all the online, news sites and things like that. And we want to thank, by the way, Sarah and Eddie for joining us recently.
Thank you.
Thank y'all so much. But we understand, look, if money's tight and all that stuff, just wherever you get your podcast, if you could leave us, 5 stars and a review, that would be amazing. And I want to thank Trina 5B for leaving us a really great review. No, I'm sorry. That person left us a shitty review.
Thanks for nothing, Trina.
Who says we get old? Droops88 from Great Britain left us a 5-star review and says we're legends. Thank you.
Thank you.
But also the people who listen to us on Good Pods are constantly leaving us really good reviews there. really,
Awesome.
thank you. Or just tell a friend about the show. Or, don't be shy. Send us an email. We can send you some stickers in the mail. Slap that on your laptop. Or just tell a friend about the show. Easy as that.
It helps us offset all the reviews we get from Trina.
Bless her heart. As they say in the South. Or in Holland, maybe they say that there, where our creep really comes from today. Ooh. Did you know that or not?
No, I don't know hardly anything about this dude, so I am ready.
Are you rip-roaring ready to go?
I am.
Okay. Our creep today is Colonel Tom Parker. I was inspired, y'all, because I saw the Elvis movie. I'm not a big Baz Luhrmann person. I like him fine. It's a little hit or miss for me. I, for some reason, stupid love this movie, Elvis.
All right. I need to watch it. It is on my list. I'm going to move it up.
And we also co-host a show called Dorking Out, and I mentioned this on Dorking Out. I've taken in a lot of Elvis paraphernalia since I was a kid. I'm old enough to remember when Elvis died. My mom was cleaning in our house and started crying when she heard. And I said, Mommy, why are you crying? Because she never used to listen to Elvis. She listened to Linda Ronstadt and Joni Mitchell, cool stuff.
Yeah.
And I realize now it's because that was her childhood. She listened to Elvis as a little kid, and that made her, it was very sad. And also, he was 42. I mean, that's incredibly young. Very, very sad.
Super young. And for people that are a little younger than that, it's the same thing with Michael Jackson. Like when Michael Jackson died, people my age were really sad.
Right.
Like, even though he's problematic, to say the least, to say the very least. But to people who were younger than us, Michael Jackson was like, he's a fucking weirdo. That dude's a weirdo.
He's
like,
kooky.
yeah, why do you care? And it's like, they don't know. Like, we grew up listening to Michael Jackson just like our parents grew up listening to Elvis.
He was 42 when he died, and there's a person there's no way to talk about Elvis Presley without talking about his manager, agent, public relations officer, overall CEO, CMO, COO of all things, Elvis Inc., which was Colonel Tom Parker. And as gorgeous as Elvis was, and let's be clear, the man was a god. He was beautiful.
True.
This man was not. Bless his heart, as they say in the South. Not struck by the good-looking fairy at all.
Got it.
Had smarts, though. Very, very, very sharp. As I said, I saw this Baz Luhrmann movie, and I am also a big Tom Hanks fan, and I try to see just about everything that he's in. I think he makes really interesting choices. Mm-hmm. I also think he just likes to be busy, and so maybe he doesn't like to have 6 months off. Maybe he's like, well, I got to do something. This might be the case.
Some actors really just love to work. We love to shit on, people. Some people like to shit on people like John Travolta or Nicolas Cage because they make all these movies that go direct to Redbox and stuff. Some actors just want to work, man. That's the thing.
They also have very expensive tastes. These gentlemen also, got very fancy tastes in their 20s and are not going to give that shit up. And correct. Fine. If they're willing to work that hard for it, fine.
Yeah.
Tom Hanks, if you see this movie, or if you just, do a Google image search of Tom Hanks, click, 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 Elvis movie, Colonel Tom Parker, you're going to be like, holy shit, this guy is the Stay Puff Marshmellow Man. What is going on here? They have him in a fat suit. Once again, with the fat suits and actors.
Okay. Why don't they just hire someone who kind of looks the part? Like, I went through this with House of Gucci and Jared Leto, who is like unrecognizable. And it's, once again, we've talked about that on the show before. We're like, everyone in Gucci talks alike in this, and their accent's a little different. It's me, Mario. It's very, why don't they just hire somebody like a John Goodman or something to play Colonel Tom Parker?
They're all getting skinny. Goodman's thin now.
That's true. They put him in a fat suit.
And as soon as I say that, I'm like, Tom Hanks has diabetes. He can't gain that weight. That would kill him.
That's true.
And we don't. He's a treasure. We can't hurt Tom Hanks. But
no.
It's a very weird part.
Okay.
So I started reading about Colonel Tom Parker, and I realized he's playing a real creep. And he's trying to be malevolent. But at the same time, he's in this gigantic fat suit with the big jowls and everything. I'm like, I'm not scared of this guy. So I thought, like, I need to do my research, and I'm going to do some reading and do some, you know me, I like to go down rabbit holes. That is
yes,
kind of
you
like,
do.
That is like my favorite activity. So the sources for this episode, and we don't have to do trigger warnings because he didn't. What? There's no sexual assault. There's no.
Once again, what a treat.
What a treat, y'all. So we're going to go with Tom Parker's Wikipedia. We went to Vanity Fair, Smithsonian, Den of Geek, Bustle, the New York Times, grunge.com is a great video. I really enjoyed this book, The Extraordinary Story of Colonel Tom Parker and Elvis by Alanna Nash. She's written 5 books about Elvis. I didn't read them all, but she was actually friends with the Colonel. And it's got some interesting stories about him. There's a really interesting show I've been watching, Sonia. It's called Sun Records. On it's season 1 is on Prime. It was on CMT. Oh. It's really, really interesting. Of course, I went back to Elvis and Me with Priscilla Presley. There's the TV movie that I love, Dale Metcalf.
You have to.
You have to. There's the Elvis and the Colonel TV movie. This is with Beau Bridges as the Colonel.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And let's get started. Let me bring up my script. Sorry, Sonia.
You're fine.
Not for nothing, but my cat laid a deuce. Yikes.
That's what your cat thinks of Colonel Tom Parker.
She is like, you are not paying enough attention to me.
She laid a Colonel Tom Parker right in her litter box.
Wow. All right, computer. This is when I feel like Sigourney Weaver in Galaxy Quest. Computer.
Okay,
Bring up document.
Bring up document, please.
This week is special to Elvis fans around the world, Sonia, because it is the 45th anniversary of the death of Elvis Presley.
Or so they say.
Or so they say. I wrote that too. When he left his earthly body, if you believe that he died. At the time that he passed, if you believe he passed, he was getting ready to do a show in Portland, Maine. He was actually getting ready to do 2 weeks worth of shows. The sheer number of pills he took every day, people didn't know how he lived when he died. That's also part of the shock that went into it. Yeah. People really didn't know, like, people's personal lives back then. He was supposedly prescribed over 19,000 pills in the last 3 years of his life.
That's
Just
insane.
Think about that number.
That it boggles my mind.
We also found out right after he died the paltry state of his financial life. The amount of control Colonel Tom Parker had over much of his life since 1955. So today we're going to talk about the weirdness that is the man, Colonel Tom Parker, who lied his way into King's life. Into the king's life. Sorry.
Yeah.
Because he is the king. And wound up changing the world while ultimately becoming an afterthought. Thomas Andrew Parker claims he was born in West Virginia in 1900, served in the military in the 1930s, was a carnival barker, and worked with country stars Hank Snow and Eddie Arnold, and was given the title colonel by the governor of Louisiana in 1944. He found Elvis in 1955 and muscled his way into being his manager. And within a year, Elvis was a superstar. Mm-hmm. By being his business manager and his press agent, he took in 50% of the cut.
Damn.
10 to 15% is the standard for a manager and agent. 10 to 15%. Wow. And here's a thing that he's always called a genius for. Wait for it. He put Elvis's name and likeness on everything. Mm-hmm. Lunchboxes,
yes,
T-shirts, buttons. He also, this was actually very smart, he put Elvis's name on things that said, I hate Elvis. He had buttons that said, I love Elvis, and he had buttons that said, I hate Elvis, and Elvis is a creep.
Okay,
that's pretty smart.
Yeah.
Yeah. He made $25 million in the first couple of years.
That's so much fucking money back then.
A lot of fucking money.
I mean, it's a lot of money now.
But yeah. He also tried to micromanage Elvis's love life. Not too successful there. Once again, go back to Elvis's episode if you want to hear about that shit. But he did when it came to business, he ruled the roost. After Elvis left the army during the 1960s, he kept him in a string of movies, most of them really terrible. And then after the 1968 TV special, which revived Elvis's career and his cool factor, he convinced Elvis to work strictly in the United States and mostly in Las Vegas. Sometimes 2 shows a day, 7 days a week at a time. Think about that.
Wow. Yeah.
For the kind of shows he did, where he's on his feet the whole time, everything.
Yes.
Just to pay off his gambling addictions because he was in debt. He would never allow Elvis to tour overseas, ever. Elvis never did a tour. He did a couple of dates in Canada. That was it. They lost millions because of this.
Yes.
This wore down Elvis's body, doing all this constant playing, because he had to reinvent the show, because people were like, well, who's going to see, you'd go to see the show and you're like, you're done. So he would have, the Colonel Parker would bring in his doctors who would give him shots and pills. Elvis got hooked on this shit to keep him going. In 1973, he made a deal with RCA for Elvis's back catalog for $5.4 million, which he got 50 to 70% of. They always go back and forth on this number, which that's 30 million in today's dollars, which is still nothing when you think about how much he sold and what that shit's worth.
So many hits.
So many hits. Yeah.
Damn.
After Elvis died, he was investigated, Colonel Parker, because he was still in charge. They put him in charge, and he was found to be unethical in his dealings with Elvis. But that's just the beginning, Sonia. Here is the real story.
Can't wait.
This is my favorite part.
Real story.
True story. That's John, season 2, Real World, Los Angeles. Andreas Cornelius van Kwak was born in Breda, Holland in 1909 to a large Catholic family. He was 7th of 11 children.
Wow.
Andreas was called Dries by his family, and he grew up in a tough environment. They lived basically on a farm in a barn. They lived basically in the barn.
He was born in a barn.
He basically said, were you raised in a barn? We say that in America. Yeah. He basically fucking was raised in a barn.
All right.
The kids slept in a loft, and the boys were on one side and the girls were on the other, and they had like a sheet between them. What could possibly go wrong? And I shudder.
No.
Every morning, their father would expect them to rise early and help out with the chores. Dries was not into this, and I kind of team trees here. But anyway, if the kids tried to sleep in, the father would drag them out of bed and beat them with a stick.
Oh.
Monsters come from somewhere, you guys.
Yes.
We have to remember that. He was rebellious. Dries was rebellious and would often run away. And his favorite thing in the world, and I don't speak Dutch, just to warn you.
Yes.
But his favorite thing was kermis. It's not Kermit. It's kermis. It's Kermis, which is a large fair that came to town. Okay. He was basically a carny. He wanted to be a carny when he grew up. He was obsessed with carnivals.
He had the face for it.
He had the knack for it. Yes, he did. He had a very unusual look. He actually was very slim most of his life. We'll get to that in a second. When he was young, like 10 or 11 years old, he partnered with a fortune teller, and he basically had a 50% split with her. He would tell people, for 50 cents, I'll give you the ticket to sit with this woman, and then she would charge 50 cents for the reading. And she used to just charge 50 cents for the reading, but he would say, oh no, you have to get this ticket to sit with her.
Wow.
And he was just making money. He was terrible at school and often in trouble for not following the rules and for failing tests. One punishment he had to endure, and this is uniquely Dutch, kneeling on the floor and shoving his knees into a pair of wooden shoes for as long as he could take the pain.
Oh.
Can you imagine this shit?
No, that sounds terrible.
He also had a unique feature. He had a very sloping nose, like Bob Hope.
Oh, all right.
Yep.
All right.
One day he pranked a teacher And he used to like do things like he'd send balloons to the school and say, "Oh, you have balloons. It's your birthday." And the teacher would leave to get their balloons, and then he would just be up to some shit in the classroom. So the teacher goes out to get his gift, and then he wrote on the chalkboard, "Long live the nose." So the teacher comes back, and he's furious. So they kicked him out of school in the 5th grade, and his parents like did not know what to do with him. He was getting kicked out of all the schools. Now, during this time, his parents were always punishing him. The teachers were always punishing him. And later in his life, people said he was very cruel to people, and he was particularly just mean and humiliating. And he said it all came back from this experience. Like this, yeah. Monsters come from a place. Okay.
Yes.
So he takes on a bunch of different jobs when he was a teenager. He didn't seem very interested in friends or girlfriends. He only cared about nice clothes, carnivals, and money. And by the time he was 15, he went by the name Andre.
Okay.
Andre. That's that from Project
Andre?
Runway. Andre, let's go to the Red Lobster.
Oh my God. I haven't thought about that in so long.
That was my
It's time to
fave.
go to the Let's go to the Red Lobster. Sorry. Okay.
No, I'm sorry. I'm feeling silly. Okay. When he was 16, this is really hilarious. His father died. Sorry.
It's hilarious. No.
He was expected to come home and take care of his mother. And he basically said, nah, and headed out to the seas. He went on the Holland American line, and he sailed for a few years. Or did he? There is no record of this, but he basically has experience in ports all over the world and could describe them in detail to people. And he starts in English. He starts lying around this time, and there's no evidence of it. And it's also 19 teens, early 1920s. Like, there's just no records for things.
There's no records, right?
So he's already like a mysterious, weird kid. And anyway, he goes through Nova Scotia, Canada, and winds up in Hoboken, New Jersey.
Okay.
And he's living with a Dutch family. The mother of the family, in this family, is missing Holland so much that she just takes in this kid. And he's a total mooch. Like, he just stays in the house. He doesn't go anywhere. And he's a good talker. So the mother is like, well, you should write home and tell your mother where you are, because you're like pretty far away. And he says, no, it's fine. It's fine. So she finally writes the mother and says, your son's staying with me. He's okay. And by the time she sends the letter, he's pissed for her for doing that. He just disappears. He starts traveling America, and he joins all these carnivals and road shows. And in the summer, there's carnivals and road shows.
Yes.
In the winter, there's nothing. So he starts hoboing it. And
Tied a little bindle to a stick.
Yeah, and they have what's called slug mulligan stew, which is basically boiled meat that he really enjoys. I don't know, it sounds disgusting,
Blech.
but he really loves it. In 1927, he turns 18, and out of nowhere, he just shows up in Holland for his mother's birthday. And she's really excited to see him. He's wearing super fancy clothes. He's got a lot of money, and he gives her all of his money. And he says, I'm home again. I'm going to help take care of you. And he seems okay for a while, and then he starts to get bored. In 1929, he takes off again, and he just disappears, like May of 1929. So for like a year and a half. He leaves.
This is surprising.
Yes.
He has a face only a mother could love.
He's very erratic. He leaves all the fancy clothes, all his money. It's just like he took off in the middle of the night. Just dashes off. Okay. He goes to America, and he doesn't talk to his family for like decades. He just completely disappears. Now, in May of 1929, just as he disappears, there's a murder in Breda. And it's a woman named Anna van den Enden. She was battered to death behind the store where she worked. And the killer sprinkled pepper around her body to throw off the scent from dogs. This was close to Andre's home. People wondered maybe he was escaping, like he got upset, he got mad, he was trying to rob her, or he was looking for money. Nobody could ever say. I mean, there's like this 130-page police report. His name never comes up, but they said the person that they saw that they couldn't identify was a man. He was a fancy dresser and he had like a yellow coat. So that's guilty to me. But,
and ugly.
And he had a big nose.
Ugly. Sounds guilty.
In the 70s, somebody contacted the media and said that their mother-in-law said it was Colonel Parker, and he freaked out like it was in the Dutch media. But anyway, so back in America in 1929, he doesn't have a passport. He comes into America and he joins the army. And he's being interviewed for the army, and the man that interviews him is named Tom Parker. And when the guy interviews him, he says, "What's your name?" And he says, "You know what's funny? My name's Tom Parker too."
Weird.
And he just takes his fucking name.
That's so...
No passport, no ID. But, you know, the army's always looking for people.
I'm going to start doing this to people.
Yeah.
When I meet people. Yeah.
His name is my name too, John Jacob.
Jingleheimer Schmidt? What? That's my name too.
He goes and he gets sent to, he's a good talker, right? Like I said, once again, he's a salesman. He wants to be charming. And this guy's like, "Well, that's funny. Well, would you want to go to Hawaii?" Not everybody wants to. And he's like, "Fuck yeah, I want to go to Hawaii. That sounds amazing."
We all do.
Yeah.
We all do.
So he goes to Hawaii for a couple of years. And he actually kind of likes it. He gets a tan. He gets in shape. It's not too hard. And he goes for a couple of years, and they bring him back, and then he's in Florida. And he re-enlists, and it's Fort Barrancas. I don't know what it's pronounced, sorry. But this time he chafes under the command. He has like a real bossy kind of army sergeant. So he just takes off and he goes AWOL.
No one told me I was going to have to follow orders in the army. Fuck this.
Stomps out. They find him. They bring him back. He then is sent to military prison, and he's in solitary confinement for several months, which is very cruel.
That's super cruel.
It's super fucking cruel. By the time he gets out, he is diagnosed with psychosis.
Damn.
And is sent to a hospital in Washington, D.C. And they basically have to discharge him because he's so messed up from this.
Wow.
So now we're in the 1930s, and he's back into the carnival world. And he marries a woman, and this is the only woman. Well, there's one other woman he marries. This is the woman he's never shown any interest in any women before this. Her name is Marie Mott. She's 35. She's a divorcee, and she has two sons. One of whom she sends to live with her parents to raise him. And another one she sends away for adoption because he has a club foot. Yeah.
It's sad.
It's sad. There's some sad here going on here. She just wants to go on the road. She doesn't want responsibility. She wants to play long cons with him. They go on the road, and it's the Depression. So there's sometimes they make maybe $1 a week.
Right.
But they love each other. They're like pals, and they go on the road together. Also in 1940, there's a time when undocumented people could apply for citizenship. No questions asked. He would never do it. There's very few people he would talk about his status. He would just say, "No, I'm from West Virginia." And he had very Dutch ways of speaking. Like if you would say book, he'd say book. Like it had a lot of O's in it. Like there's certain ticks in his vocabulary that people are like, "You're not from West Virginia." But he had a temper on him. Like if you question him about things, he would fucking lose it. And he would get in people's grill. And he just would just get really angry. So people learned just not to get close to him.
Yeah.
Right?
Because he's ugly.
He's got a bad personality. He's got a really... Okay.
He's got it all, ladies. He's ugly and he has a bad personality.
And hostile.
Woo! He's a triple threat.
He's a lying sack of shit and...
Oh, I love it.
Part of being with the animals, but being in the carnivals is dealing with animals, and he thinks he's really good at it. So he has a couple of bits that he does here, like in Tampa. He decides he's always thinking of ways to make money. He gets a horse in his backyard, He makes a pit, and he puts the horse in the pit, like a foot into the pit, and buries the horse into the pit. And look at this really small horse. because he shrunk
Oh
the
my God.
right. And the animal welfare people come by and they're like, "What the fuck are you doing?" Because he's charging people to look at this really small horse that they and he talks his way into working for the Humane Society of Tampa, and they give him the job.
This dude is really shitty with animals. We should hire him.
Yeah. And so then they give him like free room and board. He like raises money for the Humane Society. When he was in the carnivals, they had a lion that was losing its teeth. And he says, "Oh, I know what to do." And he makes a set of teeth and he just put mustard around the teeth and shoved it into the lion's mouth.
Okay, that's from Looney Tunes.
I swear to God, that's what they said. I'm just telling you what the book said, okay?
The book wouldn't lie.
Alanna Nash would not lie to us about this. Anyway, he does this stuff, animal stuff, and then in the 40s, he realizes the country music is catching on. And he's realizing this carnival stuff is, it's fun, but it's not going to make you money in the long run.
Right.
Everyone's on a con. Everyone's conning you. He represents Gene Austen, and he realizes, "Oh, I'm good at this promotion shit. Like, I know how to make money." Because people are suckers. They don't think they're going to be ripped off at a concert. They pretty much know you will be at a carnival. They're on their guard.
Correct.
Right? Also, at the onset of World War II, so we're in the mid-40s now, in order to avoid the draft, which, by the way, this guy went psycho like the first time around.
Yeah.
He gained over 200 pounds in order to avoid the draft. That's why he got so big. And he was never able to get rid of that until he was elderly, basically, after a couple of strokes. Yeah.
That is also why I put on weight.
In 1948, he was given the honorary rank of Colonel of the Louisiana State Militia from Jimmy Davis, governor of Louisiana. There wasn't a state militia of Louisiana. Louisiana is also very corrupt politics.
It's so weird.
But he loved it so much because he loved America. Yeah. So he took the title. He's now working with Hank Snow and Eddie Arnold in 1955 when he meets Elvis Presley. Mm-hmm. We all know about Elvis Presley. I mean, I don't have to really go into all this with you, but Elvis gets popular. Elvis goes into the army. Elvis comes out of the army. Elvis makes a stream of like really good movies and then really terrible movies. Elvis really wants to tour. Elvis is like, "What's going on? It's the 60s, the Beatles, the Stones. They all keep telling me I'm an influence. Why can't I go on the road with them? Why can't I go to, Woodstock? Why can't I go to these things?" And Parker's like, "No, no, no. You can't. You can tour with Neil Sedaka. You can't be on the stage with The Who." And he's always like, "Why not?" And Parker won't do it. He's a little bit of a square. But also, Parker doesn't have a passport. He has no citizenship. He can't travel with Elvis anywhere. And he knows Elvis goes overseas, he's going to be snapped up by some other tour manager. Mm-hmm. He will. Led Zeppelin's tour manager, somebody's going to snap Elvis in a second because they'll make him 3, 4, 5 times the money.
Yes.
In a second. He would sell at Wembley Stadium. I guarantee you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. So he's costing Elvis a shitload of money. So he keeps Elvis in America and gives him these deals. And he's like, "You're going to make up this shitload of money in Vegas." But Elvis is only getting 50%. Right?
That's so bananas.
And there's times, like I said, where the schedule is 2 shows a day, 7 days a week. That's just, that's going to break anybody. I don't care. So he becomes addicted to pills and injections and it's constantly trying to pay tax bills. He's constantly paying his debts, gambling debts. Yes. Because the colonel, who doesn't drink, doesn't fool around, really doesn't have any kind of vices except for gambling. He has a gambling habit. So Elvis is paying for that. Okay. 1977, if you believe Elvis died, this is what happened. And I just want to read just one little paragraph here.
Yes.
August 15th, 1977. Dateline. Okay.
Dateline.
I love this. Elvis slipped out of his blue silk pajamas, lounging pajamas, and with the help of his cousin, Billy Smith, climbed into a black sweatsuit emblazoned with a drug enforcement agency patch, a white silk shirt, and a pair of black patent boots with which he wore unzipped due to the puffy buildup of fluid in his ankles. I know. Little hearts in my eyes.
Oh, so hot.
So he goes out riding with his motorcycle with his girlfriend, Ginger Alden, while he has 245s and his, pistols in his waistband. He goes to the dentist, 10:30 at night.
Like you do.
Like one does. Comes home and eats. Goes to bed about 2 a.m. Wakes up about 8 a.m. and says to Ginger, I got to go to the bathroom. I'll be right back. And she checks in on about 2 p.m. And the crew is the Memphis Mafia. They were ordered, like, don't wake, not until 4 p.m. Do not even bother. So she checks in on about 2 in the afternoon. That's when she finds him. And when they find him, he had been gone for hours.
So awful.
And
what a way to go.
Oh, it's terrible. I mean, he's in the bathroom.
Yeah.
He was, rigor mortis had set in.
Oh, it's so awful.
I'm sorry.
No, it's just like, that's an epic shit.
It's an epic shit. It's an epic heart attack. It's an epic everything.
Yes.
When he was there, like, they were all, the medics came and they were like, who is this? And they're like, Elvis, bring him back to life. And they thought it was a black man because his skin was so purple.
Wow.
Yeah. And they're like, all right, well, Anyway, there were people, and the colonel was in Maine. He was in Portland, Maine. That's where he was going to go. The colonel basically didn't react. He was kind of like, oh, boy. All right. Got to come back. Tell Vernon, his father, Elvis's father. And there were those who blamed the colonel in the inner circle because he's the one that worked him like crazy. Yeah. Gave him, all the doctors were people he paid that put him on the payroll and shit.
Yes.
On the day of Elvis's funeral, the colonel had his father, Vernon, sign a deal to have the colonel make all of the business decisions and sign on his behalf all of the matters pertaining to Elvis. At the time of his death, after taxes, the Elvis Presley estate was worth about $1 million. That's it.
Damn.
Don't tell me this guy was
a
a great
terrible
businessman.
manager.
Yeah. The colonel wore a Hawaiian shirt to the funeral, sat in the back, refused to go anywhere near the casket, did not sit next to the family, and offended the family because he refused to be a pallbearer.
Jesus.
Afterwards, he ran things for a while, and people seemed to be okay with it. Everyone was in shock, and nobody in the family is like a business expert. Priscilla, Fernan, nobody here is.
He's taking advantage.
Yes. And eventually the state of Tennessee is like, they're looking into the dealings because the taxes and everything. They're looking into the dealings, and basically the mismanagement. He's sued for mismanagement, and the RCA deal in and of itself was declared unethically handled.
Wow.
Things were eventually sorted out. He got some money from them. They got him to not be in charge anymore. It was very, very messy.
Yes.
Marie died in 1980. He got remarried. His very last years were spent in and out of casinos trying to pay off his gambling debts.
Damn.
He died in January of 1997 at the age of 87. And just kind of this shell of what he used to be.
Yeah.
Priscilla and Lisa Marie, all of them kind of forgave him.
That's very generous.
They're very
them.
generous of them. Like, they took over everything, and Priscilla to this day was like, he was kind of like family. He was imperfect. They don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't. I wouldn't be that generous. I think.
No,
Priscilla's
I
very
don't think
generous.
I would. I wouldn't be that generous either.
But that's our creep this week, Colonel Tom Parker.
Good job, Margot. What a fucking creep.
Right?
It's like taking advantage of Elvis, taking advantage of his family after he passes away. That's fucked up.
Yeah.
What a prick.
I mean, you could make the argument, and anybody could, like, he saw something great and helped make it big.
Yeah.
Sure. Absolutely.
Right.
But then he also fumbled the fucking ball. I mean, he
did.
Really, the fact that Elvis only had like it was like $7 million, but after taxes, it was nothing. It was like only $1 million. And it's like,
which is bananas because he had a huge catalog. He made so many movies. There's so much merchandise. Like,
he was successful in the 70s too. He had a lot of hits, not just not just the old stuff. Like, he was still very successful.
Like, he should have been rolling in it.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. What a fucking creep.
Yeah.
Do you want to take a break and then we'll come back and talk about some people who are not creeps?
Yes, please.
Okay. Are you ready to hear about some non-creeps?
I certainly am.
All right, let's do it. I decided to dig in on some kernels here. So I've got
kernel of wisdom?
A kernel of wisdom for y'all. We got Colonel Florence Blanchfield. She was the chief of the Army Nurse Corps, and she was the first woman to hold a permanent commission in the U.S. Army. She was responsible for the largest group of nurses ever to be on active duty. It was more than 50,000 nurses.
Wow.
Yeah. She received the Florence Nightingale Medal by the International Red Cross. She received the Distinguished Service Medal in West Virginia. That was her home state. And they named a hospital after her in Kentucky. Then we've got Colonel Anna Mae Hayes. She was actually named, she actually got promoted to a general, and she became the first woman in the history of the U.S. Army to attain a general officer rank.
Damn.
Yeah, and while she was in the Army, she paved the way for equal treatment of women, and she made a number of recommendations that were adopted into like military policy. So they stopped discharging women for becoming pregnant.
What?
Apparently that was a thing that used to happen. Like, you're pregnant, bye, you're not in here anymore. And she was instrumental in getting regulations changed to allow spouses of female service members to claim similar benefits. So when men were in the Army, the women, their wives would get certain benefits, but if women joined the Army, their husbands would not get those benefits.
That makes sense.
So she fixed that.
Good for her.
And this is my favorite part of this. So she's made a general. First thing she does, she gets in a car and she has them drop her off at the Army's officer club. And up to that day, female officers were expected to go in through the side entrance. And she walked up and went in the front door. And after that, women never went through the side entrance again.
Nice.
And then this one's dope. So in 2018, country music star Reba McEntire became the first woman to portray Colonel Sanders for Kentucky Fried Chicken. What? So I think that's awesome. But I wanted to mention her because she's actually done these really awesome things. So she opened something in 92 called the Reba's Ranch House. It's in Texas. It's kind of like the Ronald McDonald House, which I don't know if people overseas know what that is, but it's it gives people like a place to go when their children are receiving medical treatment at hospitals. It's like a place for families to stay. So that the families can be together while the children are getting treatment. And she has something like that. So she, has set this up so that families can be together while their children are getting treated, which I think is awesome.
That's amazing.
She's also just really supportive of all these different organizations. So she's really big in Habitat for Humanity, the Salvation Army, Red Cross, Feeding America. She's been honored with the Minnie Pearl Award. If you don't know who Minnie Pearl is.
Howdy!
She's from the Grand Ole Opry, and she's super famous over here. She's received all kinds of humanitarian awards. I think Reba McEntire is actually pretty rad. Like country
Yeah.
music's not my jam. And I like her movies too. When she shows up in movies, I'm always like, oh, it's Reba McEntire.
She's a great actress.
She is. Like her sitcom was on for a long time. I believe she was in Tremors.
Yeah, she's great in Tremors.
She was really great. And then most recently, she showed up in Barb and Star, Go to Vista Del Mar, and she played Trish, which I think is very important. But those are our 3 non-creeps.
Those are amazing non-creeps. Nice work, Sonia.
Thank you.
Well, that's our show this week. Thank you all so much for listening. And if you like the sound of our voices, and gosh darn it, if you lasted this long, of course you do.
I would assume so.
Yes, we co-host a show called Dorking Out, where we dork out about movies. And we're going to be dorking out about a Wolfgang Peterson movie. It's going to be a replay of In the Line of Fire, because he passed away recently, and we both really love that movie.
Yes.
So that's going to be coming up. And please, follow us in all the places we mentioned at the top of the show for social media. We love it when you use the Annie Potts gift. We got one when you have suggestions for creeps, and especially for non-creeps. We're always looking for suggestions. And
yes,
once
please.
again, our email is whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com. And if you'd like some stickers, wherever you are on the planet of Earth, we're happy to send them to you. And Sonia, where can they find you?
You can find me at thesoniashow.com and The Sonia Show on Twitter and Instagram and TikTok. And where can people find you, Margot?
You can find me at Brooklyn Fit Chick for Twitter and Instagram. My site is brooklynfitchick.com. I'm at TikTok at Margot Donahue. Excuse me. Thank you all so much for listening once again. We'll be back soon with a new episode. In the meantime, stay safe and, don't be a creep.
Be a creep.
Thank you for listening to us talk about creeps. You can follow us at What a Creep Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
But don't follow us too closely.
You can email us your creepy stories at whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com.
But please keep your dick pics to yourself.